Welcome to the Remarkable Results Radio Town Hall Academy. Carm Capriato here, and another one of these incredible roundtables. The only weekly forum for aftermarket professionals that really bring a fresh, innovative discussion to inspire and grow individuals and companies. And we're live on Facebook. We'll repurpose this video and the audio by next Wednesday. It's episode 50, Finding the Right Business Coach. Oh my. Well, with us today is Dutch Silverstein. Say hi, Dutch.
Howdy, everybody.
From A&M Auto Service in Pineville, North Carolina. Doug Whiteman, owner of George's Sierra Shell from Fontana, California, and one of my earliest interviews back almost 3 years ago, Doug. Thank you so much for that. And Darren Barney, owner of Barney Brothers Off-Road and Repair in Grand Junction, Colorado. Hey, Darren.
Hello.
So we got Pineville, North Carolina, Fontana, California, Grand Junction, Colorado, and I'm on the road. I'm at the Auto Vitals Digital Shop Conference in Santa Barbara. And they had the mudslides on 101 over here. It has really goofed up a lot of people's travel plans. But anyway, I'm here having a great time and live in a makeshift studio. So we want to thank Jasper for their support of the Town Hall Academy. You know, Jasper has over 2,000 associates, 3 manufacturing facilities, 2 distribution centers, and 45 branch offices across the country. They're all working to produce, transport, and deliver the perfect product, and that's what Jasper does best, keep customers happy. Thank you, Jasper, for your support of the Town Hall Academy. Well, I have to tell you, it's not for lack of that this is a very hot subject, and when I worked with my panel this week, I got volumes and volumes of stuff coming back to me as to what they would like to talk about. And what we're going to have to do is to try to condense it all in an hour, because I believe, guys, this thing could go on for literally hours. We're going to try to hopefully take the essence of this. But what I want to do is I want to almost start out with a little high-level think. I want to ask each of you this. How do you know you need a business coach? And I want each of you to answer that for me. Doug, I want to start with you.
Okay. Well, I started with a coach in 2005. And really, I was a mechanic before taking over my dad's business in 95, and really just needed a coach to help me fix the issues here, like, gross profit margins, productivity, stuff like that. That was initially what the coach was for. As we go on in this podcast, we'll see there's different stages of the coaching and how the coaches change over the years and what they actually do to help you. And pretty soon you're identifying your own problems. So
you basically knew that you needed a business coach because as you took over, you wanted to change how the company ran?
Well, I didn't want to go bankrupt. That was the main thing.
There's a motivator, huh?
I'd worked here with my dad my whole life, and he passed away, and I ran it 10 years, and knew how to fix cars, just not how to fix the business.
Boy, ain't that the truth. That's the secret, everyone, from going from a technician to service writer to CEO. And sometimes there is a skip in that service writer thing because some techs don't want to talk to people. They are so good at talking to cars. Darren, how about you? How do you know you need a business coach?
Well, in my own, what happened with me is I graduated from AMI with my master's, and I got done with all this stuff, and then I'm sitting down in my business, and I'm going, what do I do next here? What do I do? And so it started on the course of trying to figure out, got to look outside myself and outside these books I've been reading and start talking with a coach, and all of a sudden he's opening up my eyes and allowing me to see things differently than what I've ever seen before, and getting that outside input and helping me grow and change.
So with AMI, you went from almost like reading input quizzes, tests to two-way.
Correct. Yeah, it really did. So once again, just like Doug was saying earlier, you just get to the point though where you're just kind of chasing your tail all day long. and, just keeping this crazy machine running. And it's like, what do I got to do? I got to do something different here. Otherwise I'm going to go crazy.
I've said this over and over again on the podcasts, 292 of them as of today. Amazing. And when I first started, I realized that the successful shop owners, 95% of them that I interviewed, I started to ask myself, what's the common denominator of their success? And it was that they had a business coach. It's a phenomenon that exists in our industry. It doesn't happen in the construction and the plumbing and the electrical industries. There just is, there aren't any. I mean, if they're out there, there's not a lot of big talk about it. And so that's great that this industry has that wealth of knowledge. And actually, Darren, I'll go to you. The trader's skill that you feel is most important in integrating and meshing with a business coach. Not every business coach and every shop owner was meant to work with each other.
I think that that's a good question, because really you have to go in with a goal in mind. And so if you go in just expecting him to fix the whole business, it's really hard to do that. You have to go in with specifics of what you want to improve. And so as you bring that list into your coach is going to take that list and help you with that list, along with bringing in the other things that he sees need to be improved as well. So personally, I think that when I started going with my coach, I kind of went in with, I got to fix this whole thing. What am I doing here? So it just really helped a lot once I came in with more of a focus of the areas that I knew I really wanted to improve upon. And then I brought in my ideas to the table with John, my coach, and then he would then, bring ideas back to me and suggestions and things for me to try. And so then as we moved along, it would allow me to kind of tailor that list more and more each week as we go on.
So a trait of his or a skill of his that meshed with you, if you said, if I ever hired another coach, he would be like John, what's the trait that meshes for you?
I'd have to say believes in me, honestly. Because there's those days that, you come in and you're down and you're like, oh my goodness, wow, this many bombs drop on you. And to be able to send a text message to him and just, give him a little feel for what's going on, and him to just say, you got this. Don't worry about it. It's good. We got it. Don't worry. Points out the good things you've achieved. And it's a great, wonderful thing for me personally that, I like having a coach that believes in me.
Excellent. Thank you. Doug, meshing, skill, trait.
I agree with Darren some there. You have to have a relationship with a coach. When I went into this, I wrote a big check and I was determined that this was going to work. So I let my coach right off the bat know, we're going to go toe to toe. You tell me what I'm doing wrong. We're not here to be friends. There's a relationship, there's respect, but we're not here to be friends. So I guess the trait would be honesty, being upfront, not afraid to, tell me what I need to do and worry about the backlash of it.
No politically correct relationship.
Exactly, yes.
Hit me in the nose if I have to have it, right?
Exactly, yeah. I paid the money. You better do it.
That's a great point. I love that point. Well, Dutch, now that you're fixed, you've got two questions coming at you. How do you know you need a business coach?
Because I knew that there was stuff that I didn't know, and I didn't know what that stuff was. I really didn't know what it was that I didn't know. I knew that there were huge gaps in my knowledge, but I couldn't tell you what it was so that I could affect the change. So I had to seek the expertise of somebody who would be able to look objectively at my circumstance at my shop and say, okay, yeah, you're doing this great, but here you really suck, and we need to change this. So that's what I did. I began to interview coaches.
So a lesson out there for people that are struggling, need to admit, hey, I'm not good at HR. I'm not good at finance. I have no clue what gross profit means. Net profit, gross profit, top line, bottom line, expenses. Does this come out of cost of labor? And
you got to understand the psychology of mechanics, all right, of technicians. We're problem solvers, right? You give us a car, it's making a noise. We're going to dig, we're going to find, we're going to check Mitchell. We're going to do whatever we need to do to fix it, all right? Because if you can't, you're seen in your own mind as being weak. And in our industry, guys don't like to ask for help because asking for help is a sign of weakness. I've had techs in my shop who are great techs, and they were struggling on something, and when I'd walk over to ask them, hey, do you need a hand? No, I'll get it. Just give me another 10 minutes. I'll get it, because they want to get it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And coming from that background where I wanted to get it myself, it makes it difficult, because you have to recognize that it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to pay for help. And it doesn't mean you're any less of a human being because of it.
Yeah, well said. Now take question number 2, catch up to the rest of us here. A trader's skill, most important in integrating you with a business coach.
It's exactly what Douglas said. I needed a guy that I could trust, who would tell me straight up what I was doing when I was doing it wrong, and who didn't worry. That's why I don't have a coach. I have a consultant. I didn't want somebody who wanted to be my friend, who would give me positive motivation and encouragement and engage in a holistic activity with me to address my mind, body, and spirit as I proceed along this path. It just makes me want to puke. I need somebody who's going to tell me exactly what I'm doing wrong, and if I hate him at the moment, well, that's okay. My check's still cleared.
Guys, what kind of benefits, both personal and professional, should you expect from your consultant coach? Benefits, both personal and professional.
I would have to say that personal, I mean, I have to agree with both Dutch and Doug, but I also feel, though, that it's important to have a coach that, for me personally, that I admire and look up to. Because me being a business owner, doing this for, my own business for 16 years, I get this hard headed of, what, I can do this, and I can beat the world, just like you were just saying. We're problem solvers. But you get to that point where you got to let go a little bit and trust that coach. And for me, I had to have a personal relationship with my coach to know that he's wanting what's best for me and my company as well. And for me to let that guard down and go, you know what, I'm going to listen to him. He likes me. It's a weird situation how I got him as a coach, because I worked for him years ago and I quit because I didn't agree with some of the ways that he was teaching me to take care of my customers. It was so different from my previous boss. So once we started talking and we established that trust of me knowing that he really wanted my business to succeed and cared about me personally, it really let my guard down so that I could listen to him and take his advice to heart and really try applying these things rather than going, this guy doesn't want to see me succeed. So I do agree that, I wanted that guy to kick me in the rear, but I also wanted to know that there was that personal connection there that I could open up myself and say, hey, you know what? I don't know what to do here. I'm supposed to know all the answers. I don't. I trust you to respect me and work together on that. So it worked really well for me personally to be able to have that good, close friendship with him. That's somebody that I look forward to hearing how his week went, and anyway.
I got it. So, yeah, I get it. I'm going to change up what I said, guys, and ask each of you to answer that question. Dutch, I want to go to you. You have to really commit to the real possibility that you may have to change how you run your business.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's really most difficult. Is that, and Darren just nailed it a minute ago. He said, yeah, we can be really hard-headed. Well, he's absolutely right. We can be really hard-headed. And a coach or a consultant can come in your business and tell you, you need to do this. And since you're paying them and since you respect their expertise, you have to go ahead and implement it. And you have to be willing to do it to 100% of your ability. If you automatically dismiss it and go, well, I tried that 3 years ago and it really didn't work, and let me tell you why it's not going to work in my area because of the demographics that I got over here and this and that and the other, you're wasting your money. If he says to do this, you go ahead and do it, and you have to be willing to fail. If you're not willing to fail in this attempt, if you're not willing to give it your all, then don't do it. You're relying on the expertise. You're paying your good hard-earned money for somebody who's going to tell you what to do in order to grow your business according to the goals that you've set forth. Okay, then commit to it. That's it. It's like when you get airborne in an airplane. You're flying or you're not. You're not kind of flying. You're either going to be in it or you're going to be out of it. One of the two. So
don't half-bake yourself into a coaching or consulting relationship. You're all in or don't.
Right, or don't, because all you're going to do is waste your time and money. And you're going to waste the time and money of a coach whose expertise and invaluable experience can be better utilized helping somebody who will commit. All right, so when you get a coach, now I'm not saying you have to agree with everything that the coach says 100% of the time. I went toe-to-toe with my coach a number of occasions, okay, because I'm hard-headed. But the fact is, when he said go ahead and do this, and he made the recommendations to change the facility and do the things that I did, I spent a lot of money doing that. And I did it because of his reputation and because of his desire to see me succeed. If I would have hemmed and hawed, if I would have said, nah, I don't think so, I don't want to do that, I wouldn't be where I am now. You have to be willing to commit. There's no taking your toe and dipping it in and going, I don't like that.
Yeah, well, I bet you if we had 3 coaches on here, and we will have 3 coaches to talk about their side of the relationship, they would probably say that one of the biggest things is to gain the commitment, and because you're paying a significant amount of money, and why would you again be half baked for the money that you're putting out? Yep. Great point, Dutch. Thank you. Doug, you sent me 3 different stages of coaching. I loved what you sent me. The first one was, first, your coach will identify problems with all of your issues. Walk me through some of those areas that you need to expect him or her to look at.
Okay, thank you. Well, initially, like Dutch had said, there is a relationship there. For me, it was a female coach, and I was not hard-headed. I knew I was at the end of my rope, and so I'd actually made an agreement where I'll do everything you tell me, and if it doesn't work, then I get my money back. If that would have happened or not, I don't know. But going in with that attitude more, it was just a matter of weeks till I was actually paying bills on time and turning it around. So the first thing they look at was just, again, coming from the technician standpoint, you don't know or care what parts margins should be or labor margins or anything else. So first thing they did was look at gross profit and start adjusting issues like that. The productivity of technicians. I was a service writer on the counter at the same time that I joined the coaching program, and first thing they did was say, get off the counter and get someone else on there. So the first stage was just looking at really the low-hanging fruit to turn the business around.
Back when Motor Age was doing the Shop of the Year, how many times did you win that?
Well, I won it in 2014 as a top shop. I was in the top 12 for several years before that.
I just want everybody to know that.
Thank you for that. Shameless plug there. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, something worked.
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, we, again, going from where we were to where we are now, could have never been done without a coach. And it's setting the goals.
So, Dutch, any thing going on in a personal life that could affect your total integration into the business with a coach could be an issue, huh?
That's something that you really, really, really need to think about when you're considering retaining a coach. Is there something in your life, something outside of the business, that can distract you to the point where you're not going to be able to devote your time, energy, and effort into making the transition that you want from the shop that you have to the shop that you want? And those things can include, for example, a divorce. What happens if you have a child who's terminally ill? What happens if you have a parent that has dementia? Or that there's something else aside from the business that you can't control? You can't stop. Well, for me, the thought always was, if there was any of those things, I would simply stop. But you have to be willing to face the fact that, now might not be the best time for me to have a coach. Let me get through this as best I can, get a handle on it, adjust my mental focus and my coping mechanisms so that I can jump in and dedicate myself entirely, wholeheartedly to the endeavor that's put before me that I'm paying for. because if anybody has gone through a divorce, or you have a child with a terminal illness, or any of the horrible, devastating things that happen to each and every one of us in the human condition, you know, the last thing you want to do after a long day is sit there and fill out an Excel spreadsheet to talk about profit margin when a loved one is going through chemo. That's something you need to consider.
Great point, because as you guys all said, you've got to be all in on this. And so you're all in, you're on it. You're working this program for a couple of years, and then you have a personal crisis. Guys, can you stop, back off? I'm sure your coach would understand you've got other priorities to work on, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It kind of, it wasn't a personal crisis, but I'm not a person to sit in the office for long. This hour will just about kill me sitting still, but here I'm sacrificing. But
thank you, sir.
But the coach right off the bat taught me that if I can't sit here and do that Excel spreadsheet, or I can't do the marketing stuff I need to, or look at the numbers and put the policies in place that I need to, then find someone to do it. And that was very important information right in the beginning there. And that's kind of what's helped me work to this point where I get we're getting ready to sign up. If there's a terminal illness or something, you shouldn't be signing up. But if it's a couple years into it and something happens, then you need to find someone to finish the job that you started.
Thank you for that. So you gave me 3 stages of coaching. We covered the first one, identify problems with your coach. The second one is your coach will teach you to identify your problems. Tell me about that.
Well, for my coaching program, we use a portal where we put the numbers in each week and looked at that. And in the beginning, she would call me and look at the numbers and say, here's your problem, fix this, this, and this. We'd work on that for a while and tackle some more. And then after roughly 6 to 9 months, it started just to click where I didn't need the coach to tell me what the problems were. I could see them. I still needed her, or at this point it was another coach. I needed him to tell me how to fix those problems still myself. But you start to identify the problems yourself, so you're not relying on the coach as much.
How does that feel when that starts to happen?
I remember that. I remember the week when he called and he started to go through stuff. I said, no, I see where it is. It's line 25 or whatever it was. And I see what I need to fix. And I've talked to the technicians or whatever it was. I remember that conversation. It felt really good to now that I'm actually taking ownership or controlling this business again.
Excellent. Darren, you know of anyone, did it happen to you, if a coach suggests something that you're just not ready to do or won't do?
Yeah, of course. A lot of things that my coach would suggest to me at first seemed alien to me and did not seem like what I wanted to do. Nothing stands out to mind right now, but when I first started, I remember that there was quite a few things that I put bold on the notes that I would take with each phone call, and I would type it in and I'd put it bold on the things that I needed to address and take care of. And the things that he wanted me to do that I didn't do, I didn't put them in bold. And so I have since moved on to the things that he asked me to do. I make them all in bold because I know there's a reason and a purpose behind it.
Integrity, ethics, would those ever cross the line at all on things that you, in your own makeup, you'd never want to do? No.
And in fact, that's something that I know, that's one of the ways I know I have the right company and coach that I'm working with, because I work with Elite and John Rush, and the two together, I really believe that I have the best coaching company that money can buy. John has never asked me to do anything unethical.
Perfect.
And the other company that we looked at going with before, they came in and they sat down with my brother and my wife and I, and they were talking about doing these different things. And my wife says, well, I don't want to just raise prices to raise prices on people. And the guy says, well, sometimes that's what you have to do to make money. He says, obviously you're not doing that. Look at your numbers. You're not doing that. And it was amazing the difference between the two coaches where, this potential guy, and he's telling me, you're going to do this, you're going to raise the prices. And it was almost like you're going to screw your customers, where John says, hey, we got to pay attention to these little things here and slowly make a little bit of improvements. And and all of a sudden you're going to have a little bit of money to put a sign out front. You're going to be able to do these things that you want to do, rather than, you're going to screw the guy, you're going to take advantage of him. It's like, no, you're going to offer better quality service. You're going to do this, and you're going to do this to raise your price up a little bit more so you can do more things with your business.
So, Dutch, I think what I just heard Darren said, there's a bunch of little things all done in an improvement plan that make the whole thing work.
Yeah, it's not just one thing. There's always the opportunity when you're a tech, you're looking for the silver bullet. And people will use various resources like Identifix and another thing, and they'll go and they say, here's a problem, and they'll go online or they'll go on IATN and they want to find the silver bullet, the one thing that's going to fix everything. Well, there's no one thing in the shop that's going to fix everything. It's a bunch of smaller things, some a little larger than others, that will have a cumulative effect and fix what you want.
Got it. Any of you guys ever get into a situation where you're in with your coach 6 months and okay, you're not happy with this person, I suggest that you move on with this person. Any experience in how to deal with that?
Yeah, it happened to me. I've had 3 coaches over the years, and the first coach was fantastic. She helped me take my business from point A to point B and get where I wanted to get. But it started getting a little too comfortable where, it wasn't focusing on all the issues on our phone calls and our emails. It was, talking more about the kids and all, it's great, Darren, to have a relationship. And, just like Carm knows, my daughter plays soccer, all that is good. But we were starting to lose focus on what I was paying. So I just went to the coaching manager and just said, hey, can we get another coach?
Okay, that's a great point, is that you have no problem, I guess, if you're dealing with a very large company, to be able to go one level up and say, it's time for a new relationship then.
Yes.
Okay. Back to my original question, did your coach ever say to you, you may need to let this person go who's been with you 10 years because in their opinion, this person isn't really helping your business?
Yeah, again, if you're talking to me, but yeah, that happened right off the bat. When I was a service writer, there was another guy here that my dad hired in the 80s. His name was Mike, and he was a service writer. And, through the phone calls and the profile test, stuff like that, the coach just said, hey, you have to get Mike off that counter. He's as loyal as a dog. He's a great employee, but he's not the personality to have on that front counter. And so I talked to Mike, and he stepped off the counter for a while. Then he decided to move on, and that was okay.
Tough for you?
Yeah. I mean, emotionally it was tough because my dad hired him. I knew him for 10 years. From the business standpoint, it's what you got to do. Got
it. Darren, how about you? Ever?
Yeah. I mean, most of the time it's kind of funny that now that we've been going on together as long as we have, a lot of times he'll bring something up that has been on my mind as well. And he'll say, I was wondering how the performance is going with this particular person. And it's one of those things that it's something that I, had planned to discuss with him as well. So yes, I mean, there is been a couple things where he recommends doing something and I'm like, well, wait a minute here. No, I don't know. Let's talk through this here. But yeah, you have to be willing to make those changes if you want to succeed. You have to be willing and open to accept those suggestions and those comments.
Dutch?
Yeah, I had the opportunity. What I did was actually the situation was almost in reverse in that I had somebody that I was considering bringing aboard, and I had my consultant interview him and talk to him over the phone. So it wasn't that, because I was hesitant. I didn't know if it was the right thing to do or not. I didn't have the experience in hiring people. I was the guy to be hired. I was not the guy that was going to be doing a lot of hiring myself. So I wanted to make sure that I had a backup. And what he did was he had a telephone interview, and then he later met him later on, and we brought him aboard. So it was a little different take. It was the opposite take on that.
Thank you for that. Hey, at Jasper Engines and Transmissions, quality and customer service is their number one goal. Their associates take pride in their work, and it shows in the quality drivetrain products that they produce. Their quality and customer service has kept them growing for 75 years. 75-year company, Jasper. Thank you, Jasper, for your support of the town hall. Accountability. That's kind of almost the overarching. You're paying. Partly, I love what you said earlier, Dutch. As a consultant, you don't want to coach. I've seen defensive line NFL coaches work with their guys during the week. Had a chance to see that once, and it really opened my eyes where the coach was going to that individual, 300-pound defensive lineman and teaching him your God-given talent. And when the offensive lineman is, put your weight over here, and this is the play we're calling, and you got to move this guy. And he was building him up, so mentally he knew exactly what to do. And I love what you said earlier, that you don't need a coach to build you up. You need an accountability partner. Yeah. And that's what I love to talk about for the next few minutes, guys. And I think that's probably the rock or the tremble that rocks your world when you hire a coach or a consultant, that you are really needing to, first of all, you need to be accountable to the money you've paid, because someone's going to help guide you. And if not, you get zero ROI on your money. You would never want to do that. But at the same time, how do you deal with someone that is going to hold you accountable? Dutch, let me ask you first.
Well, I mean, the first thing you don't want to do is you don't want to let them down. All right. And in so doing, I don't want to let myself down, because I don't want to be putting myself in a position. I know how hard I have to work and what I have to do to earn the money that I get to keep at the end of the month. I don't want to waste that. So by having another level of accountability and saying, because sometimes being lazy gets to be easy. Sometimes you just don't want to do it, and any excuse is as good as another. So you need some level of accountability. Somebody say, okay, you said you were going to do this. Did you do it? Okay, you didn't do it. Why didn't you do it? I didn't do it for this. Well, you realize, of course, that that's a load of crap, right? That was just an excuse. Yeah. Okay. So the next time we talk, you're going to get this done, unless you just like wasting your money. And then you got nowhere to go with that, because it's ultimately true. I mean, that's all there is to it. Somebody has to hold your feet to the fire and say, look, sometimes in life there are things that you can't prevent, things you can't help. You didn't have any influence. But in this case, Dutch, you dropped the ball. You just, you dropped the ball. You were busy, but you weren't productive, and you got confused between being busy and being productive. Yeah. And we both know that you did it. And then, basically I just looked sheepish and said, yeah, I'm just a piece of crap. But and that was it. I mean, you have to be honest here.
Darren, accountability, did it rock your world, or were you looking for it?
I was looking for it, but it did rock my world too, and it still does. It does. I just had a great breakthrough that, for the longest time they had me filling out this spreadsheet that I understood why I needed to do it. And I did it, but I didn't really enjoy doing it. And now it's kind of funny, because the list they've given me has actually grown of things that I want to track. And so I have ditched their sheet, and I still fill theirs out, but I created my own, and it has all these other things that I track now and follow with each one of my positions in the company, so that I can know each day where they're at. So I mean, it's fun that accountability at first was kind of like, oh wow, this is a pain in the rear, and now I've taken it. It's like, yeah, all right, now I know.
Okay, so you took that discipline to another level.
Oh, it's really fun, actually. I mean, it really is. I spend so much of my day going through and looking at all these different, the KPIs, so I know exactly where I'm standing every day.
Do
who's
they
performing and where's not, and so on.
do these KPIs that not only your coach has you tracking, but the new ones that you created, help you get a clearer picture on how the business is running?
So yes, it does. It reminds me of a scope on a rifle. You know, if you've ever had a very powerful scope and you can crank it way up and all of a sudden you can really get in and see some distance and fine tune yourself in. And that's the way that this sheet allows me to do. Whatever I feel is important for me to track, I put on my list. So every morning, that's my first thing on my list, is to go through those my spreadsheet and look at each one of those points and go, wow, my eBay guy did not list as much as he did the last couple of days. So I can go in there and it's like, okay, well, wow, he's actually down for the week. And if you don't have those things together for me personally, how would you, when you're running a business, you got all these things to look at. But if I really make track of all these different things, I can really watch it from one piece of paper. For me, it really works wonderful.
Think about
all the different positions of the company.
Think about what Darren just said. So he's got a coach holding him accountable, and he's using his KPIs, the coaches and his, to hold his people accountable to him. Was that accountability piece for you, Darren, new, or you knew it existed, but you used the coach to help you take it to a new level?
Well, I knew we needed to do it. I mean, I've been going to classes for years and doing all these things, and I knew I needed to do it, and I would try it for a while. When you got a coach that says, hey, why didn't you fill out your sheet? You know, it's like, well, I'm paying for this. I better be filling that sheet out. You know, and then you start to see why you're filling that sheet out. And then as time goes on, it's like, just like I said, wow, this is great. Now I know why I'm doing this.
God, so your advice is to anyone who's starting up with a new coach, this is not instant oatmeal. This takes the old-fashioned way, right? You got to boil the oats.
Well, the neat thing is you will see progress right away. If you've got the right coach, you will. But then as more time goes on, a lot of times will see the effects of those things you first started doing that maybe you don't see right away.
Good.
Just like exercise, you know? So.
Good advice. Yeah, great advice. Exercise is a great analogy. Doug, that was your third pillar on different stages of coaching, and it was the accountability piece. Big for you?
Very big. Much like Darren, I needed the accountability right off the bat. I knew what I was supposed to be doing, and I wasn't. As time went on, I actually stopped working with coaches after 5 or 6 years. Things were going very, very good here. I couldn't really justify spending the money because I knew everything at that point. So kidding, you never know it all. So I stopped using the coach, and about a year later, I like Darren built my own portal, my own spreadsheet, and was looking at my KPIs, and pretty soon you see numbers start to drop just 1 or 2 points and 1 or 2 points. And, you know, after about a year and a half, I looked at it and I realized, you know, just without having the accountability, someone knowing that someone's going to check me on this every week, they dropped. And I looked at just in my parts margins alone, taking that back up the 6 or 8 points where it should be, paid for the coach in itself. So it's kind of, you need that accountability constant.
I remember that from your original interview. I remember that so clearly from 3 years ago, where you explained I was in it and then I stopped and then I'm back, and it was the accountability piece that you needed. Guys, business coaches possess skills that a lot of owners don't. Can you give me an idea, Darren, of a skill that your coach has that you don't, and you like that?
Yeah, I mean, the financial part of things was something I always lacked in. And so once again, I'm going to go back to that spreadsheet again, but I didn't know I knew that I should be doing it, but with the coach teaching me how to do it and then teaching me the simple things of math of figuring out, it's like, well, if you hire this additional guy here and you increase the things over here, then this is going to pay for his salary. And it's just amazing how having somebody with that open mind and that vision and that knowledge then can enlighten your world so much. And then all of a sudden you realize it's like, wow, you're right. If I do this, I can afford to do this.
Dutch, a skill?
Cecil was my coach for many, many years. And Cecil had the ability to explain things that made it easy for everybody to understand. he was very good at being direct and at the same time diplomatic. I'm as diplomatic as a 2x4. I don't have a filter for that. I'll just as soon crack you over the head and then ask you why you're crying. I don't. Cecil would pull me aside and he would say, I understand your heart is good, but look what's going to happen if you speak to this person this way. Is that going to get you the results you want to achieve? Well, no, I would say, but it's honest. Yeah, absolutely true, he would say. But after you've done that, are you better or worse off? Most of the time I would be worse off. So that's what he told me. He taught me to be more cognizant of how I phrase things when speaking to employees, because I don't have the filter that says if you say this, you can, potentially hurt somebody's feelings.
I call those soft skills. Would you agree?
Yeah. And I've learned kicking and screaming because I didn't come from an environment where that was welcomed. You didn't turn to the person that was sitting next to you and say, if you don't mind, could you please take the gear and bring him in the up position? It was positive rate gear up. That was it. Former background. You didn't have time for the nuance.
Yeah. Well, you're a pilot, jet pilot, airline pilot, Dutch's background. And if you didn't have good disciplines and you weren't direct, you didn't go up and you didn't come down the right way.
Or it took a whole bunch of power to taxi to the gate if you forgot to lower the gear.
There's the soundbite. Well, good. So you learned some soft skills.
Yes.
What about you, Doug? Any change?
Any change in
how you say became a leader based on what you learned from your coach?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, what you just said is you have to learn to not be a technician and learn to be a business owner, and how you talk to people, what you do. I mean, you can't share all the personal problems of your business with all your employees. One, they don't care, and two, that doesn't help build the morale or anything else. So it's really you learn to run a business. I was fortunate. My first coach, her family actually had a chain of gas stations. We're still a Shell gas station that does auto repair, and so her family had gas stations, so she was able to relate to me quite a bit through the transition of being completely repair shops into the food mart side of it, and it's helped my whole business really. So
Dutch, we need to get some advice for first timers or even second timers that have fallen out of a relationship. But and there's a lot of great coaches. I've interviewed so many of them, and I love this profession, that business coach profession, consultant. If I was ready to start, how would I learn? Do I ask the coach, give me some references? Do you go on social media and ask someone? I mean, how do you start to find where it's going to work?
Well, there was recently on one of the Facebook pages, and I think, and forgive me if I get his name wrong, I think his name is Tom Ham, and he's with the Automotive Management Network.
Absolutely. No.
And they had posted on that site a list of, I think it was 25 coaches or more. Forgive me if the number is wrong.
You're right. I think you're right.
So what you can do is you can do a Google search about those companies. And you should, from that information, if there are seminars that sometimes they'll have weekend seminars in your area, you should attend those. You have to be willing to make the investment in yourself. So you're going to get charged a fee for going to the seminars. There's my area, there's WorldPack, which is a parts distributor, and they have business seminars. I've been to seminars by ATI, Repair Shop Coach. There's been a number of different ways that you can go about, and you learn to see if their business model that they're advocating is going to be a good fit for yours. So there's a number of questions, and then later on, after this is over, I'll do it this weekend. I'm going to be posting, it'll be about, well in excess of 10 pages, almost 15 pages long, a document about questions that you should be asking of yourself as an individual who would perhaps like to obtain the services of a coach, and then questions to ask the coach. Because there's a bit of deference that we give as shop owners to coaches, especially if those coaches are very, very successful. And we see them, that they appear to be very well off. They're living the life that we'd like to live. And so we're not as critical as we should be. So this, the paper that's going to be on the Auto Shop Owners Group Facebook page, will go through this, and I suspect that it will probably upset one or more coaches who don't like getting asked these types of questions.
Well, you're putting out a lot of money, and there's no doubt you're the customer at that point.
Yep.
And you've got to make the right decision for you. That's actually okay, isn't it? I mean, anything you buy that's worth a ton of money, you've got to be careful before you jump in.
Well, yeah, I always thought it was strange that a guy's going to go spend $500 on a television set, and he'll go in to watch the set in 3 different stores and go to Consumer Reports and talk to his buddies about it and everything else. But when it comes down to it, he's going to go to a seminar, and he's going to be so jazzed and so impressed about what he's going to do that he's going to commit thousands and thousands of dollars to his money without ever asking. So you have to do your due diligence. You have to compare and contrast, and you have to be a little bit more than just a little bit skeptical when you do this.
Excellent, excellent. One more time, thanking Jasper. In addition to the strict quality remanufacturing steps they take at Jasper, they can actually improve drivetrain components' original design so that it runs longer and better than when it was new. Check out their featured engine and transmission pages at jasperengines.com. Thanks, Jasper, for your support of the Town Hall Academy. Guys, let's go around the room. This was really enlightening. I think when I look at it from a perspective of someone who's struggling and they want to, they're looking at very successful shops. They're talking about having a coach, and they say, well, how do I get started? So let's go around the room and give your best piece of advice for someone who needs to get started, and maybe, some really quick kick in the butt as to how they can get started. Dutch, I'm going to start with you.
Just figure this. If you don't change what you're doing right now, nothing's ever going to change. If your circumstance is such that you're unhappy, depressed, disillusioned, because dissatisfied that the business isn't providing for you what you think it should, it isn't giving the return on the investment, not insofar as money, but in spirit, in soul, what you've put into this thing, and it's not giving it back to you, get up off your ass, turn the television off, get online, start asking people, and start making it happen. Because if you don't, tomorrow when you wake up, that football game you were watching, for those athletes who can give a rat's ass about you, are still going to be getting paid their cajillions of dollars, and you're still going to be facing a business that's going to make you unhappy. Your happiness isn't depending on anybody else. Get up off your ass and go to work.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry.
sir. Perfect.
Really, Dutch, tell us how you feel.
That's why I brought him on, Doug.
That's fine. For me, it's really simple. You're going to get out of it what you put in it. And I remember back in 1982, I graduated high school. I joined a trade school online. Well, it wasn't online, just over through a letter. And I didn't even tell my dad at the time. And I was panicked and worried because at that time it was $1,200. For a trade school. And, my dad just said, hey, you're going to get out of the school what you put in it. There's going to be faults. There's going to be instructors that are good and bad. But he said, you're going to get out of what you put in it. And that was a changing point in my life because I didn't really pay attention in high school too much without getting into details. And in that trade school, I had perfect attendance. I put it in there. I think I had a B average, which is the highest I ever had. And I got out what I put in. And that's kind of in life is the same. And even in our coaching, with a coaching company or a coach, you're going to get out it like Dutch said. If you just sit around and watch TV, that's what you're going to get out of this. If you spend the extra hours after work doing what you're supposed to do to get this thing fixed. That's what you get out of it. So
I think you broke the code. Spend the extra hours to commit.
Yeah.
So interesting. I'm talking to a technician group that this is how you really determine a great technician is that they stay after work and they do case studies and they learn their equipment because they're so committed to being the best. So interesting that you said that. Hey, before I go to Darren to close this thing up, next week, the Town Hall Academy is going to be the first moves when opening a new shop. That's going to kind of bookend maybe what we're doing here, because I know there's some people that say on day one, hire a coach. It's one of a lot of people, when they look back, that's what they say. Darren, take us home.
So I would have to agree with what Dutch and Doug have said, but I also would have to say be very careful, because there's a lot of snakes out there that run coaching businesses, and you get into it, and most of these companies will make you sign a year contract. And so be very careful, because there are some really bad, shady companies out there that you can invest all this money up front, and then they sell off your debt to other companies, and then they can make your life miserable and charge you crazy amounts of interest and all kinds of different things. So be very careful with your who you select as a coach, because you want to really do research on the company, make sure they're ethical, make sure that they're their Better Business Bureau rating is good, because you are spending all this money and to get into something where they can get out and you can't. Be very careful.
That's a great point, and we didn't discuss the financial aspect of this, and I didn't want to get into numbers. That's an individual thing with whoever a person hires. But you're right. I think you bring up an excellent point. It can be a very long-term commitment. Be careful what you sign.
Yeah. Well, and you just hear these horror stories. And I shared earlier how we had already joined with one company, and then another one came to visit us, and they came in and it was bad. I had no idea how the guy that first came in was really nice. And then the second guy they sent back in to check up was snotty and nasty. And they kept calling, and they're like, well, you guys are never going to succeed. You're always going to fail. And I mean, that guy actually told me that. And it's like, oh my goodness, I'm really glad I didn't sign with these guys.
Well, that was a hard
to another shop owner, and he tells me that he did, and he's in the middle of a lawsuit trying to get out of them. So it's like, be very careful, because you want to make sure you're getting with the right company. Do some research.
Great points. Thank you all so much. So live from Santa Barbara, California here today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm at the Auto Vitals Digital Shop Conference. Thank you to Dutch Silverstein from A&M Auto Service in Pineville, North Carolina. Doug Whiteman of George's Sierra Shell, Fontana, California. I met someone at a cocktail party last night, Doug, that met you 10 years ago, because he was asking me, well, who's on the Academy tomorrow? And I said, Doug Whiteman. And he says, wait a minute, Fontana. And it all came back to him. It was really cool. It's so neat how we have these 6 degrees of separation, people who know people. It's so interesting. And Darren Barney, owner of Barney Brothers Off-Road and Repair in Grand Junction, Colorado. Guys, excellent job. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks.
Take care. Pleased to meet you.
Bye.